I'm now joined by the co-host of Pod Save America, the host of Love It or Leave It, and content queen,
Oh, yeah.
Jon Lovett. Thanks for taking the time.
Hi.
And we're here in your studio.
We're here. Yes, we're here in the
Crooked headquarters.
HQ.
That's right. So I want to start with an issue that I think is more and more worrisome as we head toward November, and that is that there are young people, there are progressives who disapprove of Joe Biden for whatever reason, whether it's inflation, housing, Gaza. How do you approach the issue of framing this as a binary choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump? Trump, who would be objectively worse on all of these issues, and especially the issue of Gaza, with people who right now very adamantly want to punish Joe Biden at the ballot box?
So I think you have to... I actually put the concerns and anger on Israel in a separate category, and I'd actually point you to Bernie Sanders' answer to Jon on Pod Save America this week, which I thought really captured the way I feel about it anyway, which is Bernie Sanders is unabashed in his criticism of the Biden administration. He is, I think, rightly confused by just how much unwavering support Joe Biden has shown, not to Israel, but to Benjamin Netanyahu, and the moral and human toll, not to mention political toll, that has taken. But the point that Bernie Sanders makes is this is awful. And he is trying to move the Biden administration. There are now senators, even longtime, very staunch defenders of Israel, who have come out in favor of conditioning aid, who have said that there has to be, we have to use America's leverage to push Israel into allowing humanitarian aid and push Israel into a ceasefire. But the point that Sanders makes is this is an awful situation, but electing Donald Trump only makes it worse, only makes it much worse. There's no issue in which Donald Trump isn't worse than Joe Biden, and that is very much true. If you listen to Donald Trump's rhetoric on Israel in just the past couple of weeks, right. It is very much true. So far be it from me to be claiming that I have the words or sentiments to convince people who are disgusted by what's happening, to convince them that they need to turn out for Joe Biden. I do hope that the Biden administration listens to people like Bernie Sanders and others who are calling for them to use the administration's leverage to change Israel's policies. But I do think the point that Bernie makes there is right. More broadly, especially on domestic policy, Joe Biden has been an extraordinary president. He really has. There are many reasons why he has not achieved a great deal of what he had hoped to achieve on student loans, for example, although they're taking another shot at it. But given the hand that he was dealt, the divisions in the Congress, the economic consequences of a pandemic, a right-wing propaganda apparatus aimed at him, he did as much with the cards he was dealt as any president could. You look at the Inflation Reduction Act as the biggest investment in climate change policy in history. You look at the infrastructure bill and some of the bipartisan things he was able to get through, even with a whole a majority of Republicans just radicalized against governing, against democracy. You look at the way he's wielded administrative power, the way he's tried to empower people who take such a strong line on antitrust. You look at how he has managed to go around a Supreme Court ruling to try to cancel as much student debt as humanly possible. You look at the record, and it is a record that deserves re-election. And whatever concerns people have, whatever disappointments people have, Joe Biden has been a better president than any Republican could have been. He has been a better Democratic president than anyone hoped he has been. He has outperformed what a lot of people's expectations were. He consistently exceeds people's expectations. And he's done it. You know, his great superpower has been to listen and embrace and try to build consensus from the center left all the way to the left. And in doing so, making more progressive positions sound moderate. That is his great superpower. That is an amazing achievement. That means that he's been able to get some things done that I even think a more left-wing president might not have been able to get done.
Just by virtue of it being Joe Biden.
Just by virtue of it being Joe Biden. If he were 10 years younger, this wouldn't even be a question. Of course, he will have deserved re-election on his domestic policy achievements. The age concern is there. It is real. But we all collectively have a choice about whether or not we want someone who is going to fight to make the country better or someone who's going to make it much worse, someone who's going to try to enshrine Roe into law or someone who's going to try to pass a national abortion ban, someone who is going to go after trans people and gender affirming care, or someone who's going to try to protect it at the federal level, someone who believes in democracy or someone who doesn't. Voting is not some grand statement of human identity. It is not the defining character trait that proves who you are or what you believe. It is an opportunity to use a lever of power to make the country better or to make the country worse. We will have a choice in November. On climate, for example, I don't think that there is a bigger choice facing a democracy on Earth, probably in the next decade, than whether or not we elect a Democrat for the climate on planet Earth. I don't think that there's a bigger choice. I think every climate activist in the country, whatever their legitimate gripes are with Joe Biden's embrace of kind of an all of the above strategy of his failure to do a host of different things, whatever the valid criticisms may be, every person who believes that we have to tackle climate change ought to be doing everything they can to elect Joe Biden in November. And you can do that across virtually every single issue.
And I think what's important to point out, too, is that he can be persuaded on
Yes.
a lot of these issues.
Yes.
Donald Trump can't. And so knowing that this is the choice, however flawed that choice may be, if you have, on issues that you don't even agree with Joe Biden on at all, like whether it's Gaza, whether it's whatever it is, Joe Biden is much more likely to be persuaded to be more moderate, to have a moderated position on those issues than Donald Trump, who has already signaled that what he'll do with Gaza, for example, is just go and raze it to the ground.
Not only do we know that Joe Biden can be persuaded, we have seen Joe Biden be persuaded. The
Right.
Joe Biden that is president is governing more to the left than you would expect from his decades-long career in politics, more than what a lot of people expected when he became the nominee.
Yeah.
He was persuaded. He has shifted. There is a beautiful story in that this mostly centrist figure spent decades trying to become president, and in deciding that the country's soul was in jeopardy, that he truly believed democracy was on the line, not running on a lefty platform, not running on an ideological, that was not the guiding principle of his campaign. That was not what motivated him to run. He believed democracy was in jeopardy. He believed that there was a decency and goodness in America, and that he had an obligation to run to call upon that decency to prevent Donald Trump from being reelected. And in his belief in democracy, he brought the left wing to the table. He brought Bernie in. He brought a bunch of different people in. He kind of reshaped the consensus of the Democratic Party. And that belief in democracy shaped not only his reason for running, but for the way he governed. And there's something like remarkable and important and beautiful in that story. That's how I feel about that.
Perfectly put. I want to switch gears a little bit here to the question of abortion specifically. So we're expecting the question of codifying abortion rights to be on the ballot in Florida, in Montana, in Arizona, among other states this November, including New York, by the way, which it has major implications for down ballot races in that state. Does this actually put a place like Florida, for example, in play? Like, if someone asked you whether they should donate to candidates in Florida, given the fact that we have limited resources, what would you tell them?
It's a really good question. I would look. This is America. Do I believe it's possible? Sure. Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
I don't know what that answer says.
No. I look. If we're winning in Florida, we're having a good election day.
Yeah.
Do I believe that abortion being on the ballot turns people out? Absolutely. We have seen abortion win not just in states like California, but in states like Kentucky, in red states, Ohio, Kansas. So when voters are told that their basic human rights are going to be on the ballot, they show up and they protect them. That is absolutely true. Does that turn a state that has been sliding away from us into a state we can win? Maybe. But I also say, we've got tough races to win in Ohio. We've got a close race to win in Wisconsin. We've got races to win in Nevada. We've got races to win in Arizona. There are a lot of places where your money can go very far. I think it remains to be seen do I think that abortion being on the ballot means that we can do well in Florida and better than we had hoped? Absolutely. Does it make Florida a swing state again? I'd like to see more information. I'd like to see some data on that first.
Well, to that point, Biden right now has a huge cash advantage. I think he has over $150 million cash on hand. Trump doesn't. Biden is spending in a raft of states right now, while Trump is laying low, likely to save what cash he has left, and that he's not paying to Alina Habba to represent him in losing cases in court. How much of an impact do you think that makes right now? Because on one hand, it is important to define the opposition early, but then on the other hand, most people aren't even paying attention to politics right now.
Yeah, and I do think there is this increasing problem, which is the people that you can reach with traditional advertising are older, are maybe more likely to vote already, and the younger, less engaged people who have already cut the cord or never had the cord to begin with aren't going to see as many television ads, but they will see digital ads. I think you would always rather have a cash advantage. I would rather have better polls. I think that if you could ask Donald Trump, what would you rather have right now, more money or the polls that he have? I think he'd pick the polls, honestly.
Well, then, right now we are seeing the strongest economy in our lifetimes. Jobs report came out this week that showed that Biden broke 15 million jobs. Democrats are out there campaigning for abortion rights, which is popular with 3/4 of the country. And yet the polling is right now stubbornly stuck with Trump. How much are you taking seriously the polls versus ignoring them, and also adding in the fact that for so often we see that there is a fundamental issue with the validity of polls?
I think we should assume they're true. The people that are like, oh, the polls are probably wrong, and actually there's a bias towards Trump in these polls. Like, okay, I hope you're right. Let's pretend you're not right. Let's live as though these polls are an accurate snapshot of where voters are right now. The Biden campaign has said for a long time, there's been a lot. Look, obviously, we've gone through kind of periodic moments of just panic. There's panic news cycles. I don't know what stirs them, right? They're sort of low level, and then all of a sudden there's some event or some issue kind of leads to a round of, oh, he's too old and we need a brokered convention, or
he misplaces a modifier one day, and
but put aside that kind of ebb and flow of concern. The Biden campaign has consistently said, especially in the last few months before the campaign had really heated up, when people are actually presented with the choice, these polls will go from registering a kind of dissatisfaction and anger, a sourness, a desire for something better, a wish that the choices were better, a dissatisfaction by having to have this face off again, a kind of general unhappiness in the country, which is what they, let's say that's what these polls register. Over time, as the campaign heats up, as people are actually confronted with not just a real Joe Biden who is actually president versus a prospective or gauzy version of Trump, a real Biden versus a real Trump, that fundamental responsibility that voters have put on display ever since 2016, what they did in 2017, in 2018, in 2020, in 2022, in 2023, will bear out. Now, I think there are people who overstate the significance of these special elections, which I do think speak to a kind of hyper-engaged subset of the Democratic electorate just showing up.
Yeah.
They're listening to this right now.
Otherwise known as our audience?
Right. But I do think that there is something to the idea that a poll is one thing, a poll a year out or 6 months out or 8 months out is one thing, but that when people are actually confronted with a choice, they turn out to protect abortion. They turn out to vote against election deniers. They turn out to vote against people that want to pardon insurrectionists, and that responsibility gene is still in there. And even in the past couple of weeks, I don't think you can call it a comeback. But I do think you start to see, you blew your eyes and okay, the campaign's ramping up. A lot of news cycles, Trump versus Biden, Biden versus Trump, Biden versus Trump. And what do you see? You start to see a few places where Biden's ticking up, where Trump is ticking down. And you start to say, okay, this is the Biden theory that over time, as the campaign really begins in earnest, as the choice becomes clear, we will see a change. We have to see that change.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think right now what we're seeing is people registering dissatisfaction with how it is right now, but not necessarily an acknowledgement of what these polls will eventually show, which is that this is a binary choice between two people. And I think that will start to bear it out.
And also, by the way, as the election tilts towards what are you going to do in the next 4 years, I think there are a lot of people, like, I've seen some kind of discourse, like, why are some of these low numbers so stubborn, right? Like you just pointed, there's great economic data that came out. Inflation is not where it was a year ago or 2 years ago. But I do think that, inflation is a rate of change, but where things have landed is people just feel like things are more expensive and things are more expensive. And so it is true that things aren't getting worse at the rate that they were, but people still feel like things have gotten more expensive and stayed there. Maybe it's not as much of a worsening situation as it once was, but there was just a poll from, I think it was Gallup, did another round of surveys, and despite their best efforts, crime, illegal immigration, those things are rising, but inflation is still right there at the top. Jobs has fallen, the economy has fallen, healthcare has fallen, but inflation's still right up there.
Lovett, do you think Biden and Trump should debate?
Yeah, I do. I think that they have to debate. I do not think Joe Biden wants to spend... I think they're going to have to find... Joe Biden has to come out and saying he wants to debate. Trump is already trying to get ahead of it. Do I think Trump actually wants to, or does he just like the idea of saying Joe Biden won't debate him?
Right. Of being like the alpha.
Right. It has to be to one of their advantage, right? There are people that neither one of them wants to debate. Well, that can't be true.
What right-wing media will do is do what they always do, which is to lower the bar all the way down to the floor. And then when Joe Biden can stand up there and stay awake, say his name, he will have already exceeded the basement expectations that they've set for him.
Yeah, look, what was the end result of the debates in 2020? The first debate, the one where Trump had COVID and tried to kill Biden, was probably the worst presidential debate in history. It was a despicable display from Trump, dragged the whole thing down. Did Biden benefit from that? Maybe. Do you even remember the debates that followed?
No.
I do think you're right. I haven't really thought about it, but I do think you're right. They will lower the Joe Biden. If the Joe Biden that showed up at the State of the Union shows up at that debate, he will demonstrate to the American people that he is still up for this job. I do think that simple affirmation, just basically, on some level, we're going to spend the next 8 months talking about this election. There's a lot of people out there that are just going to do a gut check. Be like, can he still do it? Okay.
Yeah.
And that would be the route to do it.
Lovett, before we finish,
okay,
I thought we would put a little wager out there.
All right.
So the bet will be that if I win, what's about to happen, I'll donate to Vote Save America. If you win, you'll vote to my Don't Be a Mitch fund.
Great.
Which, low-key, are pretty much the same.
Right. Seems to be the same thing. Okay.
Same thing. All right. So here's the bet here. Should you take it? I need you to name 10 items on the Cheesecake Factory menu.
Oh, I could do that.
But they have to be the correct items. You can't just say hamburger. They have to be.
Okay. Just let me do it.
So we have crooked producer Ben here, who's gonna be fact checking, and let's see how it goes.
Yes.
Ben, you ready?
Ready.
And by the way, I'm not even gonna kind of. I'm gonna take the spirit of this because there are multiple items. For example, there are appetizer versions and main entree versions of things, and I'm not gonna do that. Okay. So I'm just giving up that now.
I immediately feel really bad.
Here we go.
About.
Thai lettuce wraps. Roadside sliders.
Hang on. Do we are these checking out, Ben?
So
far, so good.
Yeah.
It's 2 for 2. Okay.
Spinach dip. Crusted chicken romano. I'm freaking. I can see page after page after page. All right. Let's do
Are we skipping away from the appetizers now?
I've been jumping around, and I do think that was a mistake. They have buffalo chicken wings and buffalo chicken tenders. Let's just count that as one. They have Tex-Mex spring rolls or egg rolls. Tex-Mex egg rolls.
Let's check out. Yeah, I see him nodding.
They have. There's a number of different varietals of the egg rolls, but we'll just count that as one because they also have a combination platter where you can get the Tex-Mex egg rolls, the hamburger egg rolls, the taquitos, and one more version of their egg rolls. But you don't even need to count that. We don't even need to bother to count that. Let's move into move into salads. They have a Thai chicken salad. They have a chicken Caesar salad. They have a Southwestern Ranch chicken salad. Let's go to some of the entrees. I did cross a chicken romano. What's their most famous chicken? They have. I mean, can I do dessert items?
Sure, it's on the menu.
Okay, Adam's Ripple cheesecake. They have a. I think it's either called. It has like the word delicious in the word, but it's a Snickers cheesecake called Caramelicious cheesecake. Veggie burger, which is actually excellent. That's why I'm saying it. It is just called the veggie burger, but it's very, very good. They have a chicken pizza style, which I believe is still on the menu, which is basically a pounded chicken in the shape of a pizza with a dollop of fucking pasta on the top.
I'm very excited to be able to say that I'm going to be donating to Vote Save America today.
Let's keep going. Let's keep fucking going. You started this. Let's keep going.
Love it.
There's other dishes that I can picture, but I can't name. Chicken castelletta.
I feel like we should end the episode as a fading out.
They have they have Joe's Special, which is I believe half of a sandwich.
Maybe a nice
and a
song
cup
we could put under this
of soup. I think that they have fish tacos. They have
should have sought a sponsorship prior to sitting down.
By the way, I'm like really kind of disappointed in myself. I really should be able to just like kind of. I'm
disappointed
can see it.
that
I can see the Matrix.
There was a moment where I was speaking to producer Ben and saying, "Do you think 5 items is unfair to make Love It?"
They have Reese's cheesecake. They have strawberry cheesecake. They have a carrot cake / cheesecake. They have a. Let's see. Wait, we did chicken. I mean, they obviously. They have steak a la Norma. I believe they have. Oh no, I'm sorry. Chicken Madeira. We got to get chicken Madeira on the list. Steak Diane, not steak Norma.
Please
steak Diane.
Also make sure to pre-order your copy of Democracy or
Else.
Oh
yeah, get our fucking book.
How to Save America in 10 Easy Steps. You can go to crooked.com/books, and we'll slowly fade out under the din of Love It continuing to name items from the cheesecake menu.
They also have an Impossible Burger. All right. How's that?
You got like 25. That was, yeah.
I could keep going.
Wait, okay, it's chicken pounded into the shape of
It's
pizza?
chicken. It's a chicken breast fillet. Like they double slice it,
Yeah.
pound it into a circle.
Okay.
Bread it, fry it. That's your pizza. Then sauce and cheese on top. Then at the center of that is fettuccine Alfredo. Oh my God, fettuccine Alfredo! They got fettuccine Alfredo. They got so many pastas. Oh my, there's the 4 cheese pasta. There's the
Are we still rolling?
All right, I'm done. Bye guys.